The epitome of luck and coincidence makes an appearance in this movie in the form of the knife.
So
That makes me mad.
So you're telling me a knife that was made during the ancient Sith era over like 3,000 years ago just so happens to match the exact outline of the crashed and ruined Death Star over a planet not even in the system!
Hello there.
Don't have a good day. Have a great day.
Talk to me, Goose.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Why so serious?
World! I could do this all day.
Are you watching closely?
Welcome everybody to the One-Eyed Film Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Mossberg, and today we are finishing off the Trilogy of Trilogies with Isaac. Welcome back for the final installment of Star Wars Overview.
what's up?
Oh, we have been waiting for this one for a while.
We have
Because of how bad it's going to be.
we have unintentionally hinted at what is going to happen in the first two episodes.
Oh, do you think they're going to go easy on us? No, I'm sorry.
We are going to praise Disney for the masterpieces they have created. We are going to beg the Academy Awards to give them literally every prize in the book.
There you go. We've just given you a summary of the next hour.
All right, wrap it up.
Thank you guys so much for listening or watching. Where do we even start? I guess we can start with what we kind of talked about in the original trilogy episode about George Lucas signing with Disney. His original plans for the sequels. He had a full story fleshed out. Like, that's his mind, is creating the lore as he's creating the current projects. There's multiple videos of him explaining what he wanted the sequels to be. And of course, everyone's like, oh, that would have been so much better. But he signed with Disney because he wanted to spend more time with his family. He had made so much money that he didn't need to make more movies. It was kind of that artist-driven wanting to and feeling like there's more to the story. So he sold to Disney. I don't know the exact order. Did they then make the Clone Wars and he still had some creative control, or did that come before Disney and then Disney just kept airing it on the Disney Channel?
If memory serves, it was either Clone Wars was being created and they were putting episodes out, and then it got bought out, and then they finished up until I think season 6, took a break, did other stuff, or Clone Wars was made and then they made Rebels. I don't quite remember which.
Okay. According to a quick Google search, Clone Wars had been in production. It released in 2008 was the first season, and Disney bought them in 2012. So they were a ways into the series before Disney bought them, and they just kept going. Like, they weren't going to really change the story. I think Lucas still had control over it. But yes, then it turned into a Disney production.
Yep, so the last episode of Clone Wars season 6 aired in 2014. So Disney bought out and then continued to produce. And in my mind, I know we'll get to it, but interesting enough, I think you can kind of start to see where the crossover happens, where Disney starts to take control just in the way that the projects are and the look of them.
You're saying when comparing Clone Wars seasons?
Yeah. When comparing the Clone Wars seasons, you can see I would say with Disney, it brought a better glow up to it, but the story kind of started to not look great. And I think part of that may be because, again, we're getting off topic, but it's Star Wars and I love to talk about that. So part of that may be because, especially as Disney was getting closer to buying out and stuff, they wanted to make sure that it was like family friendly and you could like learn stuff from the episodes. So some of the episodes later on are kind of just like, oh, this is pointless. I learned about friendship. Yippee. So,
3 years. You said you said Disney bought in 2012.
Yep, in 12. Last episode premiered in 14.
3 years later, they release The Force Awakens. And
2017?
It released in 2015.
Holy crap.
The Force Awakens released in 2015. I know. That's what I thought.
I remember going to the theater and watching that. I don't remember that being teen.
You're so old, buddy.
I'm not. You're older than I am.
I'm so old. It's coming up on 8 years. And I'm trying to think back of what little 14-year-old Seth thought when he saw that movie. How old were you? If it was 2015.
2015. Let me think. I was 1 years old.
2.
I was old enough that I knew what I was going to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll let guesses abound.
I think it was obvious that The Force Awakens was a pretty blatant copy of A New Hope. Yet I don't think we cared back then because we didn't see the signs of what was coming. I think what Marvel movie was releasing in 2015?
I don't pay attention to Marvel, really. I really only started a couple of years ago, yeah, when I got sick and was told to stay in my room. So I just binged Marvel and Star Wars. I went through...
I know you're the Star Wars guy, but I'm curious.
I think I went through every single Star Wars movie that had been released up to that point, which probably wasn't good for me, but my goodness, was that fun.
Wow. I think I'm with you here, though. The Force Awakens being released in 2015, that was actually a really interesting year for movies. Captain America the Winter Soldier had just come out, Age of Ultron came out 2015, and Civil War came out the year after, with Doctor Strange and Ant-Man mixed in there, and Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, that was allow me to speak for the Marvel nerds, that was like almost peak Marvel. Like, it was, we were getting solo movies, we're getting some good stories. That was that era of good movies with good stories before it started dropping off. Now, to what we're talking about. Again, we love our tangents. The Force Awakens, it's the best of the 3 sequels.
Yes.
I think it showed what peak Star Wars could be visually because of, specifically, I would say the lightsabers.
No.
Using those... No. Okay. Disagreement. I don't say only. You mean the lightsaber battles or the lightsabers? Because I said the lightsabers.
No. The lightsabers...
Okay. I just think that using blades that actually glow to give environment glow helped with the visuality of it. If you took a still frame of a picture or a still frame of the movie and looked at it and was able to see the difference between that and any of the other previous ones, that brought a little bit more life to the realism of it. Now the fights, less exciting, and you can spiel about that.
I think I understand what you're getting at with environment glow. The thing is, the lightsabers that they used, especially in The Force Awakens, looked like the lightsabers you can go out and buy. It didn't look, and maybe it's just me and the way that I grew up with Star Wars and all that, it didn't look like lightsabers we had seen before. Like, that was Anakin Skywalker's saber. We've seen what it has looked like over the years, and it didn't look like it. It looked like they ran down to a local Walmart, bought one of the lightsabers that glows, and used that as their prop. I didn't like the way that it looked. The battles, a train wreck running through dumpster fires. Yeah. Ooh. It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah. I don't know what to attribute that to. I just know that thematically a lot of the lightsaber fights didn't work because of 2 people mainly using the Luke's lightsaber who had never had any training beforehand and being better than anyone they faced. I think that was frustrating for a lot of people. And just the copying of A New Hope to The Force Awakens of the trench run and the massive army of faceless white footmen, it just all felt like a copy made to look better, and quite literally the epitome of the meme, can I copy your homework? Yes, but change it just enough so you don't realize, so the teacher doesn't realize.
The perfect plagiarism.
I think it's so funny watching the videos of Mark Hamill warning us about the movies. Is he's like, oh look, Rey is a child in the desert who was abandoned by her parents, and now she gets called into a great space adventure with a little robot who's super cute and meets a mentor. Like, it's very obvious that that's copied, and it's not just what a trilogy of Star Wars should be, because quite obviously prequels didn't do that. Well, okay, I take it back. There was an orphan who was taken by a wizard with a laser sword from his parents and brought to be
on
trained
the same planet.
On the same planet to be brought and trained in the ways of the Jedi. Okay, I take it back. But it's still
incredible.
It's still
everything you just said was wrong.
I think my point still stands. Like, yes, there's a comparison, but they quite literally copied and gender swapped the original trilogy.
For all the hate that it gets, I do like it. I do think in some aspects, they're good movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the visuals and all that, despite, and even some of the story beats. I do like some of the story beats. Like the very opening scene with Poe getting ambushed on the planet. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. It was a great way to open the film. The whole Maz Kanata cantina scene with the X-Wings and all that, that's cool. That's an awesome story. Love that. It's just in the larger grand scheme of things, it does really seem like they just went over to Lucas's script, Control C, Control V, went through some stuff, and yeah. I hate it, but there are some parts I love about it.
Would you put it anywhere above 6th place? Or is all of the prequel trilogy still above number 7?
I think it's really close between that and Phantom Menace.
So The Force Awakens and Phantom Menace would be fighting for
It's-
6th or 7th.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's
Okay.
That's probably where it is.
Yeah, I remember thinking that it was so cool having another variation of lightsaber, because that was one of the first things we saw. It was a teaser trailer of Kylo Ren in the woods for no reason igniting his lightsaber. But it was one,
And that was cool.
yeah, it was a crossblade and it was crackling, and that was different, and so it was cool. But then you also start watching the movie and he gets to the planet trying to find Poe, and he holds the laser blast in midair. That was really cool. That kind of showed his power. And with this initial movie of not really knowing his backstory, it was okay. Now, knowing what we know with the rest of the movies, I have other thoughts about that. But it showed that he was angry and he was bad. The one thing I do remember from watching The Force Awakens, little 14-year-old me, was I didn't know what Adam Driver looked like. And so when Kylo Ren took off his mask, I was like, ugh. Like I thought he was gonna look scary. He's just kind of looks like a dweeb.
Well, yeah, they did it, especially again with that opening scene and his lightsaber and him holding a blaster bolt. They did a really good job with showing right at the beginning, this guy is evil and he's powerful. He's not to be messed with. And they undid in the course of however long the runtime is, hour and a half or whatever. They undid all that hard work that they did. They opened up the movie, I think, about as well as they could have, with characters and just showing who's good, who's bad, and all that. Again, it's like the Tantive 4 scene with Vader walking through the doorway. It's like, this is the bad guy. Nobody has to say it, except in A New Hope, they didn't undo the good work they did. Mm-hmm. They made sure he stayed bad.
They did just keep the momentum of Darth Vader going. And who is the man under the mask? He's the same man who you see with the mask on. And Kylo Ren just kind of turns into the softy, whiny baby grandson by the end of The Force Awakens. Finn's storyline, everyone's storyline starts in The Force Awakens, but Finn's storyline gets the most attention in The Force Awakens. He could have been a really convincing character. We could have had this whole deep dive into what it was like being brainwashed and having this life of being a stormtrooper and then coming to realization. And they butchered it. And maybe that was more due to the next movies, but it really could have been a lot more than it was.
We had really the first look, movie-wise, into somebody who was one of the faceless masks. And it would have, especially with the illusion and the hint of trained from birth, that there is so much they could have done with that. And in some situations, they kind of did a good job with it, kind of showing the trauma of what he had seen and having that be kind of the snapback to reality. In other aspects, they did a really poor job, even just straight up by not addressing it again really until it was good for the plot to move forward. So he was like, I know what they think. Just trust me. I've never been anything but a garbage disposal man, but trust me. It's like, you don't...
He became a tool for the plot, especially when he was for The Last Jedi, when he's trying to get inside all of those scenes. And then on top of that, his connection with the other woman in The Rise of Skywalker, where she was a stormtrooper, I think. And that was them remembering that he had a story that could have been really cool, and they're like, we don't really have time for him. Palpatine's back. I sometimes wonder if it was a good idea to bring back the OG trio, Luke, Leia, and Han, and I guess Chewie. That it makes sense that they would appear because the actors and actresses can do that. I feel like it was the start of the nostalgia baiting that has become so obvious in Disney's productions. So it was welcomed, and having Han and Chewie walk into the ship while they're in the trailer was fun, and they were a good addition to the story. But I feel like I feel like adding that to the story made them realize, oh, we can just bring back old characters and people love it.
Yeah, it was we kind of made that undoing ourselves, but by loving the character, I think even the uproar that we made when Han was killed, spoiler alert, it showed that we still had love for them, and they realized if anything, it's a cash grab. They realized, oh, we can put these people in and people will go to the movies so that they can see it. You know, that I think especially about that ending scene of The Force Awakens when we see Luke and it closes on that. Well, I love the cliffhanger, and I think that was probably an excellent decision movie making wise. It was also kind of like a little carrot they're dangling in front of us, like, pay attention, you never know who else could show up next. You know,
and it got you to come back to the next
some
movie.
degree I love it. I wanted to see what would happen to Luke and how they'd brutally murder his character.
Speaking of that, that's a perfect transition to talk about The Last Jedi. And what better place to start than the opening, where we were so excited to see what Luke would do with his lightsaber. Yeah, that's about the same reaction.
So I liked it. I think especially with the way that they wrote him. Not saying it was a good way, but Hamill playing in the box he was given. I think it was cool. I loved what they did with that. His callousness towards it, his disregard, I think was well played, and I think it was probably the smartest move they had. Because if he ignites it and is like, at long last it's returned, what's the new evil? I don't think very many people would have liked it.
I hear what you're saying. I don't think it should have been all dramatic. Here's your lightsaber, Luke. I found you and I need to learn from you. They should have just rewritten that and not had her be so dramatic.
The whole 2-minute island scene flyover and her climbing up the steps just to dramatically hold it. Yeah, no, that wasn't necessary. There's no reason to do that, really.
I think The Last Jedi shows where the story really starts to fall apart. The story of the sequels really becomes a mess. Hamill really understood that this was not the same Luke that we left in The Return of the Jedi. He is a more hopeful, he's the one who's going to bring back the Jedi Order, and he doesn't just give up. And that was his whole arc in The Last Jedi, is him giving up and saying that because one of his apprentices and Padawans went dark, that the whole thing needs to be shut down. And that's not what Luke's mentality is. He knows how important the Jedi are to the safety of the galaxy, and he was going to train more, and he didn't. He just gave up, and that doesn't fit with the character.
Yeah, it really doesn't. It's him giving up was kind of like all of that hard work in the original trilogy. All of that, him finding himself and finding a way to control the dark and stay in the light side. All of that, yeah, it just seemed like they went, well, that was a fun story beat for those first 3 movies. How about we just throw that and we know exactly what he should feel like. Yeah, as you said, it doesn't line up with what the character should feel like. You know, if this is 80, 90 years maybe, and I get he probably wouldn't live that long. Thinking realistically, or hypothetically, if it was 80, 90 years down the road, and he's tried multiple times, and that's been the result almost every time, or, you know, every time he tries, it just gets destroyed, I can get that. If he's like, I've tried over and over again, and every time it always comes back to the same result, it's pointless, it's doomed. But after one attempt, it's like, well, it's like me starting an essay, getting through the introductory paragraph, and being like, well, this sucks, I'm just gonna not even bother anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
You're right. This is the movie that began to make things wrong. As opposed to the opening line of The Force Awakens, this will begin to make things right. This is the movie where things began to go wrong and bad.
And part of that can probably be attributed to the fact, and I know so many people talk about it, but there's 2 different directors from the first movie to the second. I don't know what that decision was. I get if you don't like the way that the first director did it, or if there was something like with his contract or whatever. But the fact it went, was it JJ? JJ
It was
did the
Abrams to Abrams, someone Abrams.
yeah, but the fact that JJ Abrams started directed the first movie, was kind of sidelined / sacked for the second, and then was brought back for the third.
Mhm.
It doesn't. What's the point in
It's
that?
like a-
Why would you do?
It's like a
that?
tug of war.
It doesn't make sense.
It was like a tug of war of
Yeah.
my way, no my way, no my way.
Well, Abrams had his plot points. He had his his allusions to this and that set out already. He knew where he was going to go with that, and Rian Johnson comes in, and it's like he was just not told anything of what happened before other than who the main characters were.
More or less.
And where they were. It was just like, yep, so you've got Rey and Luke here, you've got these other important people over here, you've got this big baddie, kind of do whatever the heck you want. Have fun with it.
Yep. I know. This is kind of the bullcrap episode of Star Wars. Like, you got Force ghosts that are actually there, but they're not dead. They're just projections, is what Luke did. You have Force Skype, where you can just video chat, but also be in the same room as the other person. You have the lore of blue milk, because that was important to include.
That was weird. That was weird. That felt wrong on so many levels and extremely uncomfortable.
It's such a meme face that he makes, but it's so uncomfortable when you like he. Oh, that face he makes, and he goes. I can't imagine what Johnson told Mark Hamill to do in that scene. Like, Mark Hamill knows, like, oh, it's blue milk. It's what Luke was drinking on Tatooine in his first movie. And so now it's the most important thing. And so Luke is gonna look Rey directly in the eyes and go, "That was good." I don't get it. What other stuff? Oh, we haven't talked about the Holdo maneuver, which I kind of ranted at you for that in the last episode about going really fast, but
it doesn't work. They boxed themselves in and they went, what's the easiest thing we could do to get out of this? Oh, I got it. She jumps and it destroys every single ship, except it doesn't destroy every single ship. It destroys some ships, but it does exactly what we need it to be.
Such a convenient plot point.
It's not how it works.
And the all of the little ships saying they're going to be out of the radar of the bigger ships, I also don't think that's how that works. And I will give I will give it credit, a little bit of credit. When I first saw that scene, I didn't have the nerdy knowledge of hyperspeed, and that it wasn't just going really fast and anything in your way gets destroyed. I watched it, and it was one of those moments. I wonder, I've thought about doing an episode on sound design and how silence can speak more than sound design.
The scene itself and the visuals and the audio and all of that was crazy. That was really, really good.
Yeah.
And for a brief moment, I enjoyed it. I loved it. And then the Star Wars nerd inside of me went, hold on a second. That's not right.
It was really cool to see, because it was building music, da 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 da, and then absolute silence. It was more silence than I thought was possible to hear. It almost sucked sound out of the room.
Yeah.
Especially in the theater that I watched it in. That is something that I remember. And just that emptiness that left you feeling until your brain actually kicks in gear again and remembers this is stupid.
The first time you watch it, you're like, this is awesome. And then as you say, the brain kicks in and you're like, oh, wait, that's not. So going back to the little ships, I forget. Did they say if they were cloaked or not?
I don't know. I don't care.
Okay. No big deal. Yeah, you just brought that point up, and I was like, well, even if they're cloaked, it's weird in Star Wars with the way that technology works. I'm gonna geek out.
They followed them down to the planet, because then they go down to the assault planet.
There's only one planet they're going to.
But also where on the planet? So I think they still were tracking them.
True.
And then they put the walkers 100 miles away, dragging something through the landscape to get up.
It's almost beat for beat Hoth in Empire Strikes Back, except it's at the end.
Yeah, and they're also just
they're AT-ATs.
That's just they're AT-ATs that look a little bit different and are a little bit bigger.
They're AT-ATs walking on their knuckles
Yeah.
like a gorilla.
But they also had to put some regular sized AT-ATs in that scene to just show how big it is. My goodness.
Which even in the like the scenes that we get of like them standing next to their down ships and stuff isn't the correct scale. They used on the AT. Oh, what is it called? It's called the All-Terrain Mega Caliber 6. AT-AT-MC6. That's awful. But the scale is wrong in it. It's the same scale as an AT-AT. It's so based off of the scale that they give us in Empire for an AT-AT. Their foot compared to a human is huge. You have to crane your neck straight back to look up at it. When we see them on crate with that, it looks like it's almost the exact same height. Like it looks like the little foot thingy, the knuckle foot thingy, whatever it is.
The knuckle foot thingy.
It looks like they're still standing next to the regular thing. Anyway, they had to make it look bigger and more intimidating because it's the new thing. And in reality, it's not.
I got some other bullcrap things to talk about. Snoke
Awful.
was a nobody. I actually remember being excited about the theories in between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi about who Snoke is. He could be the Grand Inquisitor. He could be Jar Jar Binks. He could be like, that was part of the fun of being a fan of that era. He is nobody.
So my dad and my sister and my family, when we went to watch the Rise of Skywalker, we took an unofficial bet on who Snoke was, and none of us guessed an absolute nobody who was cloned because PaLpATINE somehow decided he was bored. I don't know.
Let's hold off on that.
I do remember my dad with the predictions. I think I went with Jar Jar. I wanted it so bad. But he was like, honestly, I hope it's Jar Jar because his death then seems even more justified. It's like, come on, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a cool character in the terms of he has a creepy looking face, he has a presence to the room. Other than that, he is completely inept, and half of me wishes he was never even introduced.
We'll talk about that when we get to Rise of Skywalker, but the throne room fight scene with the Red Guards. That one is one of the most picked apart fight scenes probably in all of history, next to the Knights of Ren fight in the Rise of Skywalker. There are...
What does this tell you, ladies and gentlemen? What does this tell you?
Oh my goodness. You have to watch a breakdown of it. I'll link it in the description.
Yeah.
There are weapons that just disappear from the throne room fight scene. Like, there's a person holding two weapons, he swings, and now he's holding one. You never see it get thrown, he just doesn't have it.
There are scenes where somebody attacks and it's like a turn-based game. Everybody just patiently waits their turn, twirls their weapon in a cool way, and is like, oh, it's my turn to get decapitated? Sweet. There's no strategy. These are supposed to be the best guards he has.
Yeah.
There's no thought of like, if we double team them, they can't block both of us. It's just like, oh, you want to rock, paper, scissors? Do you want to go for... All right, have at it. We'll cheer you on. Let's go, Timmy.
They take turns. They swing at them before they dodge. So, like, they'll swing at their right side as they're spinning. It's obviously a choreographed fight where it's like you have to be out of their way before they come down with this gavel and actually hurt you. So it's good in that way, but it's too obvious. It's too obvious that it's choreographed.
Yeah.
Oh, just watch the breakdown of it. It's so funny.
I mean, even to go back to The Force Awakens, breaking down the fight on the giant Death Star planet now, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in the way that it's untrained against highly trained, but it also doesn't make sense choreography-wise in just the way that, like, even the way that the attacks are made. I don't remember where, so unfortunately we can't add yet another link to the description.
Okay.
But I watched a video of, like, some swordsmaster breaking down the fight, and he was, like, taking the Force out. And you can't even use that as an excuse to defend Rey. Taking the Force out, Rey should have been dead within the first 3 seconds. Because what does she do? She launches like 3 stabs in a row. It's awful. It's like they brought a choreographer in to do some of the fight scenes, but they never brought anyone who actually knew what they were doing with like swords in. Or if they did, they didn't actually know how they work, because it's even watching it in the theaters, I was watching it and I was like, this doesn't even look like it's a real fight. It doesn't look like it's a life and death struggle. It looks like they're playing, it looks like something my sister and I would play with. Yeah. I'm sure the people who choreographed it tried their best, and I'm sure, I hope they got credit for what they did. I'm going to blame this on Disney and them choosing how the story gets written.
The duels in the sequels felt more like dances than duels. And think about the stakes between prequels, the OG trilogy, and the sequels. Outside of faceless antagonists, there are not a lot of serious, if any, serious lightsaber damage done during a duel in the sequels. Now you think about the prequels and the OG trilogy. Qui-Gon, Phantom Menace, dead through punctured. Anakin getting his hand cut off in Attack of the Clones, and Obi-Wan even damaged so he's out of the fight by getting his leg nicked. Dooku getting his head chopped off in Revenge of the Sith. Luke losing his hand in Empire Strikes Back. And all of those, that level of stakes is not present in the sequels. If you get wounded, like you get a lightsaber up your spine, you're fine. You just get stuck in a portable Bacta tank and you're fine. You get a stab through the midsection, you get force healed. Oh my goodness.
It's turned into a joke almost of what is the most gruesome wound somebody can be given, and how long do you think it takes for them to appear in the next movie? It's honestly, Vegas should start throwing betting lines out on that. Like, oh, this person got stabbed. How many minutes into the next episode or movie until they appear? Because it's almost a given at this point of like, oh, they got stabbed and the last we saw them was with a lightsaber through their stomach. They'll be back. They'll be fine. Ready to go.
Sabine is the worst offender of that. I saw a video that talked about how Qui-Gon used it to melt a door, more or less, in the Phantom Menace. Yep. Her insides would basically explode. And she's fine. She just
no, she's good. She's living life, man. She's jumping around and running later. Like, she doesn't even have to worry about scar tissue reopening or damaging newly. Even if they made the internal organs for her, she's running around like she doesn't have to worry about them being damaged at all. It's the dumbest thing ever.
Even if you can do injuries well, I think of Daredevil and how he always looked in pain. Because he had gashes, he had gouges and cuts everywhere, and he always looked in pain whenever he was highly damaged in fighting. I can't. I feel like there's more bullcrap in The Last Jedi, but I can't think of it right now.
Again, it's become almost a joke at this point of how somebody can die from a lightsaber. If they're even semi-important to a plot point, nothing is going to kill them, it seems. Mm-hmm. You can chop them up 5 ways from Sunday, leave them with a torso, and somehow they'll be back in the next scene with everything ready to, all limbs reattached or remade, ready to. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I got 2 more examples of bullcrap from The Last Jedi. Rey's discovery about her parents, or lack thereof, which also got retconned in The Rise of Skywalker, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yep.
But that whole dramatic mirror reveal of who's it gonna be? You see 2 silhouettes, but then they merge into one because screw you guys. It was such a that was the same level of Snoke of like, what's the big story? What's the big reveal? Nothing. That was dumb.
They couldn't decide on what they actually wanted the answer for Rey's parents to be. Mm-hmm. And again, like you described earlier, it was like a tug of war. Rian Johnson was like, it's clearly this answer. This is what I've decided. And JJ came back and he was like, no, it's not. I already decided it's going to be this one. Because screw continuity.
It did make for a pretty sick Lego Skywalker Saga video game level. I actually had fun with that one, the mirrors and different parkour ones. But God. The only other one I have to talk about is Rose and her saving Finn.
Nope, that was dumb. That was dumb.
Logistically?
That was... I saved you, dummy. Now kiss me.
And let our
While
friends
this
die.
giant machine that's going to blow a hole, and kill all of our friends, just ignore that. We're fine.
Even logistically, breaking down everyone else turning around and Finn keep going. Like Finn was going to be the hero. He was going to stop the machine, and everyone's flying away. Rose does not have the speed to turn around, go all the way out to the right, come back, and T-bone Finn. There's not enough time for that, regardless of if it makes sense for the story. It doesn't work logistically.
Not even that, right? Take a look at modern day in cars. We have what? Seatbelts. What are cars made with? Crash structures in mind. You get T-boned by somebody going full speed, you walk away with seriously gruesome injuries. It's a miracle if you can walk away. She's flying
like 200 miles an hour
at full speed. He's flying at full speed. Also in cars, you're enclosed. How he doesn't go flying out of that thing,
get ripped to shreds.
much less he's able to walk away like nothing even happened.
No, run to her, in fact.
It doesn't make sense. She survives too.
And I feel bad because the actress for Rose went through some stuff on set. Like, it was bad.
Yeah.
Like, almost lawsuit bad. And they just did her character dirty. Oh, I forgot. There's also the whole side tangent. The whole side tangent of going and saving the horses, and so unnecessary.
The casino, the whole Canto Bight casino was, I think, one of those cases of like, oh, we have this extra budget, use it or lose it, man. Gotta figure out a way to put something in there that costs CGI and animation and all that fun stuff. Gotta figure that out. I thought you were referring to the whole side tangent. The opening scene with the bombers and Poe and all that. Again, cool opening scene, I think. For the start, pretty good opening scene.
Visually.
The whole visually and with what Poe does in comedy and stuff, pretty darn good opening scene.
Okay.
Once the bombers come out, we see their top speed. Where in the wide world were those things hiding during the beginning? He shows up and you can see the fleet is, I don't know, a good quarter of the planet away, and he's the only ship in sight. Not to mention there are other Star Destroyers around. Suddenly, all of those anti-fighter turrets, they're gone. Suddenly, oh my gosh, there's half a dozen bombers and a bunch of fighters ready to go. Hey man, they just what's the cloak from Harry Potter that he just it's like they had one of those that they just threw off and they're like, we're here, surprise.
Yeah. And apparently there's no gravity in space. I think The Last Jedi is well hated for a lot of good reasons.
The no gravity, I kind of understand why you can be upset at that, but it kind of makes sense in that the bomber has an artificial gravity to it, and the Super Star Destroyer or whatever sitting in space has a gravitational pull. It's just, it doesn't sit right with what we know of Star Wars and the blatant disregard for gravity existing in space.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just another thing to add on to the whole pile of garbage that is The Last Jedi.
I think so correct me if I'm wrong, right? Force Awakens comes out and it's liked, and then that like slowly transitions into kind of a hatred for it. Last Jedi comes out, there's maybe a little bit of liking to the movie, but it's mostly hated on.
I think where you said the hype from Force Awakens kind of carried over into The Last Jedi, and then people realized that it wasn't good and started hating it. The hate from The Last Jedi carried over into The Rise of Skywalker as kind of a starting point.
That's a good way of putting it. As a starting point. I think it's pretty well justified, I have to say. It's... the hate carries over, and it's like, man, this movie sucks when you walk out. And then it's like, does it really? Wow, this sucks actually more than I originally thought.
Yeah.
This is awful. It opens with Kylo Ren landing on Exegol and him walking down the Sith Pyramid Temple thingy, past the giant statues, seeing the reveal of a bunch of Snoke faces in a pickle brine, and Darth Palpatine. Wow. Darth Sidious's voice echoing over something like, I've been expecting you. and we get to see Palpatine return. And for all, Force Awakens, really good opening scene. Last Jedi, pretty good opening scene, kind of 50-50. Rise of Skywalker, absolutely awful. Awful.
We knew Palpatine was coming back because of the trailers.
Yes, doesn't change the hate.
And we thought it was going to be hype. And I talked about this in the original Trilogies episode, how we kind of wanted it. For 20 years, we were like, maybe he survived. Maybe that explosion was him cloning himself. I didn't ever actually think we were going to get that. And especially to the degree of Snoke was just a failed clone of Palpatine. I appreciate Ian McDiarmid putting his all into his performance. Because as a Palpatine, as the character of Palpatine, he did really well in The Rise of Skywalker. It just doesn't work for the story.
I don't think you or I are hating on the actors themselves. Actors and actresses did the best that they could with what they were given. The issue is, what they were given was awful. Good acting can only save a story or a character so much from an awful storyline.
I feel like the Rise of Skywalker really felt like MacGuffins and levels to a video game, collectibles.
Yeah.
You had the Wayfinder and the knife specifically, and I guess they're connected, and it really felt like National Treasure or a video game.
It made no sense.
You need to get to this next point. The epitome of luck and coincidence makes an appearance in this movie in the form of the knife.
So
that makes me mad.
So you're telling me a knife that was made during the ancient Sith era over like 3,000 years ago just so happens to match the exact outline of the crashed and ruined Death Star over a planet
not even in the system.
Not only the ruined outline, but the silhouette of that outline from the very spot that they were standing.
Oh,
they could have been anywhere else on that planet, and they had to be standing there. And she's like, "It's right there, guys."
It felt like a Scooby-Doo or Dora the Explorer episode. Where it's like, where's the map, you guys? Where it can't possibly be. Oh my gosh, it is! I bet you that's where we have to go. Can you say Death Star?
Can you see where the map is? Muy bien.
Oh my gosh. It was
And then she gets there. And Ben is already there, and he just destroys the Wayfinder right away. Yes, that's part. I admit that's part of the tension, is that you think she's gonna get it, but then she doesn't get it.
Again, geek out time.
Take your time.
Geek out time. Right? This is an ancient Sith artifact, ancient Sith talisman, whatever. This sucker is imbued with dark side energy. Breaking this thing it's like
hard, difficult.
It's hard,
strenuous,
and breaking it would release that dark side energy. He breaks it like it's candy glass, and there's no consequence. He should be at the very least blown backwards, or you should see like a little puff to show like this had energy and dark sideness in it, because clearly it does, but it doesn't. He's like, now you have to follow me.
Now we have to be a team. You want to team up? You want to get the gang back together?
It worked so well the first time we tried this.
I want to talk really quick about Rey Palpatine and that reveal of who her parents were. And I agree with you that it was a tug of war of JJ and Ryan and JJ. JJ probably didn't expect to make Rey's parents Palpatine's kid. I think that was what hand he was forced to do.
Yeah, he was dealt it.
I don't want to say that JJ is a Star Wars purist who understands everything about it and that he had complete creative control and Disney had no say in that movie. But I don't think he would have, if he had control of The Last Jedi and then control of The Rise of Skywalker, I don't think we would have gotten to the same point. It's not like JJ had his plans for episode 9 and Ryan ruined them and he says, well, we're still going to do them. That's the hand he was forced to make it somewhat successful and make some money, is to nostalgia bait with the Emperor and then connect Rey's past with that character because Ryan ruined it.
And I think, as you said, it was the hand he was dealt. And I think to some degree he was backed into a corner. Really, he had a couple of options, and that was make Rey's parents nobodies, as was alluded to. The option that he took of make her related to somebody important, and he did the best. We know that Ben is already a Skywalker, so making another Han and Leia kissing a relative scene, not really what we want. Also, out of left field, holy crap. But anyway,
Raylo.
oh my gosh. Okay,
Raylo made me
I
mad.
have something you can put in the description, and that is the how it should have ended for The Rise of Skywalker. My goodness, does that sum up how most fans are feeling? Anyway, I think he did the best with what he was dealt, and nobody liked it. He was given a couple of really bad options, and either way, he was going to get heat for it, and he did what he could.
What else happened in that movie? I've really blocked it out.
Yeah, it's bad.
Lando appeared.
That's another old character appearing miraculously right where they need.
We get a rematch with the Red Guards, which was just as wasn't it the Red Guards?
No, it was Knights of Ren. Are you talking about when Kylo fights him?
No, Kylo fights the Knights of Ren. Doesn't Rey fight the Red Guards again?
This is how bad it is, folks. I've seen this movie probably about 3 times, and I've trauma blocked almost all of it.
You chose to watch it 3 times?
I watched it in theaters, forgot about it, thought it was a pretty good movie, watched it again, realized it was an awful movie, and then when I was sick and watching through all the Star Wars movies, I watched it again just so I could say I watched through them. It was awful.
It's the Red Guards.
It is the Red Guards?
This is the breakdown of the fight choreography. That's so funny. But it's definitely... Oh, no, it's the Sith Troopers. My bad.
When? On Exegol?
They're Sith Troopers. Yeah, Rey fighting the Sith Troopers.
When she's in front of the Emperor, and Kylo's coming back to rescue her?
Yeah, those guys.
Yeah, you're right.
Sith Troopers,
Yeah, right. So she's standing in front of the Emperor, and Kylo is trying to get her, and she does the whole magic disappearing, lightsaber appearing trick.
So she's fighting the Sith Troopers, not the Red Guards. And then he's fighting his former friends who also take their turns. Oh. If all, 8 of them rushed him, he would have been dead. But they all took their turns.
You have to think, they're called the Knights of Ren. He is called Kylo Ren. You have to think at some point they would have sparred against each other. Also, I wanted to see more of these guys. They're talked about.
There could have been so much more lore about
They look good. They look like they're about ready to wreck some absolute havoc. And instead, all we get is them standing on a cliff, disappearing in a shuttle, and then getting their butt absolutely handed to them by Kylo Ren. With a lightsaber that managed to transport between time and space. Because we forgot to give him a lightsaber, folks. Sorry.
Because we can do that now.
Bad.
I wonder if there were people who were very confused as to who he was fighting because they didn't ever give the Knights of Ren the light of day that they should have.
We get a single... We only know who they are because we get a scene with stormtroopers as they're walking by, looking to each other and going, the Knights of Ren, mercenaries, thugs. That's all we know them by. Is this the movie that has the stupid light speed skipping through an ice wall?
Is that right at the beginning?
I think it is.
I think it is.
This is the movie where they just did the Holdo maneuver, which broke hyperspace, and then they go, you know what? How about we unbreak and then proceed to re-break the rules again? It shouldn't work. It shouldn't work. It should not. The amount of times he pulls out of hyperspace right next to a celestial body should not work. It should not. That's luck.
Yep.
Because he would have had to start the process of exiting hyperspace way before he even knew about the planet arriving. It's so...
Yep.
Yeah, it's... Oh... I forgot about that. I forgot that happened at the beginning.
I'm watching it really quickly. It's... Yeah, I thought that hyperspeed landed you right outside a planet's atmosphere, but actually they broke that. They broke that back in the Force Awakens, where they crash landed into the atmosphere and onto the ground.
So the way hyperspace works is it's a computerized route, because by the point of the Star Wars movies we know, there's been enough travel and research done into it that they know where most crazy important things are, and what they don't know the computer can kind of work with. So when they say hyperspace calculations, it's literally they're putting into a computer where they are, where they want to go, and the computer then determines, okay, this is the route that needs to be taken, and it programs it. It's kind of like a GPS almost. It programs it, and then when you get to the point that you need to leave at, it jumps you. And typically the way that they work is they jump you out far enough from a planet where you don't accidentally run into it. Which is why this whole light speed skipping, unbelievably, it's not supposed to happen.
I feel like with Disney buying Star Wars, they for some reason didn't put fans of Star Wars in charge of the new Star Wars movie. It feels like they watched through the first 6 movies, if even that, and wrote a script on it, on the sequels.
I love how we were kind of fired up for Force Awakens. We were kind of fired up for Last Jedi / also starting to get a little bit down. And now we are flipping between being frustrated / it's hilariously funny and being livid and upset and sad.
Yep. I know there was one more.
Star Destroyers miraculously appearing out of thin air. Thousands of Star Destroyers suddenly appearing from underneath sheets of ice. It's been how long?
Mm-hmm.
How long since the original doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Who's piloting them?
Excellent question. all that we're given in like the books and stuff, the best that we're given is the Emperor sent a super Star Destroyer. So one of the big Star Destroyers, he sent one of those out to the unknown region. That's all we know. At best, that thing probably has the crew to run. If I'm being generous and people are crash course taught on how to do it, it probably has enough people to do maybe 100 Star Destroyers. Skeleton crew them, mind you. Not gunners or skeleton, bare minimum. They've got a bridge running. Where are they getting the Sith troopers from? Apparently they have enough of those to staff the Star Destroyers. And apparently there's enough of them that they're getting named after old Sith Lords, which is cool because it means that old Sith Lords are now canon. Not in the way I wanted them to be canon, but they're canon now. And apparently they all have they all have the ability to have planet-destroying lasers on them as an upgrade, which still has the exact... You would think 25 years past his first Star Destroyer, or his first Death Star being blown up. And we know Death Star 2 has the fatal flaw supposedly taken care of. You would think there'd be one engineer who'd be like, hey, these giant planet-destroying lasers that we modeled after the Death Star, you think they still have the same weakness that, the Death Star had, where one well-placed shot blows the entire ship up? Ah! And there's thousands of them. They had the Kyber crystal to miraculously make thousands of giant planet-destroying Death Stars. They had the material to make thousands of Death Stars. It feels like another case of use it or lose it budget.
Yep. I will say, if I had to take one thing, if I felt any emotion watching any of those 3 movies, it was surprisingly Han Solo's ghost in The Rise of Skywalker.
It doesn't make sense!
Okay, hold up. I 100% agree. It completely does not make sense. But take that little chunk of the movie. You have Ben and his redemption, and his father saying, I know, I love you. And he actually says, I know, which is, they're being all smart with their script, but it means I love you because that's how Han says I love you. That was cute. I felt a little bit of emotion there because of the redemption of the son to the father. And if we have to tie this whole thing, this whole rant into the Bible, it's us and our redemption to God, and he'll always take us back. Now, should that have made sense? And does it make sense? No.
It is.
But it's cute, I would say. It's cute. That's what I'll give it.
Knowing what we know about Han and Ben, it does touch our heartstring for sure. It is like, this is nice. It's like the Hold'em. It's like, this is nice. And then your brain catches up and you're like, this is wrong. This should not happen.
I think, do you have anything else you want to touch on? Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it.
Them kissing out of left field.
Is it good to get Raylo for life force sharing? How about that?
Oh, There's force healing, which Jedi at the temple specifically trained on from the age of 14 on how to do it. And even then, they weren't great at it. Somehow, those ancient texts, man, They must be filled with the cheat sheets. I need one of those for college. My goodness. Because clearly, those things describe exactly how to do something perfectly on your first attempt.
It feels like those additional force powers are a 3-year-old playing make-believe with their dad, and the dad is like, this is how it's actually supposed to be, son. This is how economics works. I get to tax you with your little cupcake business. I'm gonna take taxes. But because taxes, I don't do taxes. The kid just makes up some nonsense better argument like that makes that not applicable. Like, that is what most of the sequel changes to, like, the new force powers are. It's just a kid making excuses and making up a reason why they're better.
It's
I can't believe they tanked the most popular franchise in history to something to this degree. And I guess the final gripe we can have is Rey Skywalker at the very end.
Yep, stupid.
I think how it should have ended. I think it was how it should have ended. Did the oh, you're just taking your mentor's name who's dead just because it's popular, something like that. She's just a random lady and she takes her mentor's last name for no reason.
I can totally imagine, like, if it was real and stuff, and like Luke and Leia had that conscious thought or whatever, I can totally imagine Luke looking at Rey and like giving her a nod of approval, like, you're actually a Jedi, good job. And she was like, Skywalker, I'm Skywalker. No, that's not what I meant. That's the opposite.
That's not what that nod meant.
No, there would have been a hard no.
Dad?
yeah. It's like that those memes from like Guardians of the Galaxy where he's like, repeat back exactly what you heard. I am Groot.
I am Groot.
I am Groot. I am Groot. No, that's the exact opposite.
No.
Somebody make that.
Man.
Somebody make that and tag us. I want to see it.
That'd be good. What can we learn? I think I know what we can learn.
Don't give Disney control.
Disney is going down and taking everything with them, whether they know it or not. But quite honestly, when it comes to Disney and its butchering of these franchises, I don't want to call Disney evil, because I believe only the devil and his demons can be evil and humans are sinful. And this isn't even a situation of right or wrong. It's just bad marketing, bad production, whatever. The devil takes what is good and tarnishes it, makes it bad. He can't create anything, he just corrupts what is good. And I believe that's an example of that is what has happened to Star Wars. Disney has taken something good and beloved and popular and just made it unbearable. And so only through God can we have a definition of good and a ability to create. And that's what I'm getting out of this whole rant, this hour-long rant.
I think something I can pull away from this, and it's a little bit sad, not everything lasts, right? It's like, we remember Star Wars as, yes, having its flaws, but for the most part being good, being fun, being awesome. As the world changes, as we change, so too does the way we view things. So too does, like, the world changes and we change with it, be it for good or bad. And our views also change. I might look at, I love the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. Backing away from Star Wars, I love that franchise so much. I might look back on it in 10, 15 years and be like, awful movie, awful plot point. It was horrible. And that's just as I grow older and as things change, so too does my view and my opinions and the way I see the world. And I have to think that's kind of what's going on here as well. As the world continues to grow and change, so too do the views that we have on it. It might be that in 5 years we look back on this and we're like, these were actually really good movies. It might have been, had these movies been released 5 years earlier, we may have been like, these are fantastic movies.
I have my doubts, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I will say at the very end, to wrap it up, it didn't fall prey to the bad CGI era, because as someone with a degree in animation,
yes! Woo! He said the thing.
I think it all looks really good. If you can take a screenshot from at any point in the movie and it looks good, I think they did a good job with visual effects. And I think most of the shots of those 3 movies looked really good. Now, if we get into the TV shows, might be a different story. But actually, I think that should be our 4th episode. Is the Star Wars TV shows?
Which there's a lot, man. There's a lot. We got
I know.
We'd have 7 seasons of Clone Wars, 4 seasons of Rebels. You've got the Resistance, which I think is like 2 or 3 seasons. You've got the
I meant the Disney
standalone Clone Wars movie. You've got the live action stuff, Andor, Ahsoka.
Well, we already did Andor. I think I meant the Disney Plus ones, but I forgot that there's like the Clone Wars and the Rebels, and maybe eventually. I'm not saying we'll get to this in like a month, like we have for these episodes, but I think we'll eventually get to them.
He promised.
I didn't. Don't put words in my mouth.
I don't want to do this many episodes in this short of a time. It's gonna be miserable. All in all, I love Star Wars. Much as I hate on these movies and stuff, it's still Star Wars. I can disagree with what goes on. I can hate on the movies themselves, but I love Star Wars. I love the fact that we got movies after however many years. It's Star Wars. I love Star Wars.
There you go. All right. That's going to do it for this longer episode. We had fun ranting, but thank you for listening to us rant. It was good to let it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's off my chest.
Follow us on whatever platform you're listening to. Go follow all our socials, join our Discord, and stay tuned for a very exciting announcement coming in the near future. With that said, know that you are loved. God bless.
Bye-bye, everybody.